Here's a good one. My pro photo is gonna be in here somewhere. Okay, so that's basically how I turned pro. Photo in the magazine pops up, and I'm pro. There was no surprises, there was no parties, it was just magazine.
I love skateboarding, but it makes me the worst psychopathic maniac. Bang my board, you know, but then come skateboarding. It's like, I should have stopped it 30 minutes ago. You know, when you got the equation, I've become like, I know, that's what you know, but I skateboard and I lose all consciousness.
My grandma basically subscribed to every magazine and would look through all of them every month to find any photo of me. This was my first skateboard photo in a magazine ever. November 2000 Slap. So there's Dust, my first sponsor. This is at Calabasas High School. And she put my prom picture in. How good's that, dude? My name's Mikey Taylor. I started skating in '96 when I was 14. And I grew up right outside of the valley in a city called Agora. I had a friend who was like the cool kid of our group. And like anything he did, I just wanted to do to fit in. And so one day he showed up with like a new skateboard. I started doing that kind of like we had done everything in the past, except with skateboarding it was a little bit different. It kind of took a hold of me. It became an obsession really quick. And then when my friend, who was the reason why I got my first skateboard, stopped skating, I wasn't ready to give up. So I just kept skating and kind of moved into this new posse of friends who were like the skaters. I never like thought I was gonna be a pro skateboarder. I never really had an ambition to be a pro. It all happened because when I got to like around 16, 17, I started getting pressure from my parents to get a job. And I didn't want to. I didn't want to work because to me that meant I wasn't gonna be able to skate. And so I went out and filmed a video of me skating, sending it out to all these sponsors. And eventually 3 ended up calling me back, ended up sponsoring me. And then I started getting to the point of getting close to graduating. And you know, that was like when the, okay, what am I doing here happened. And so I just kind of was like, okay, how do I keep this dream going? And that was kind of when like pro skateboarder came into the conversation, because I thought that was my only ability to continue skating was to become a pro. Basically, like back then, it was way different than it is now. So there's no social media, there's no digital anything. Everything was done like VHS tapes and a magazine. So when I made all these copies of myself skateboarding, I basically picked up a magazine, and every once in a while, a company would have an ad, and in their ad, they'd include the address. Anyone who had an address got a video from me. I didn't care if the company was cool or not. It was just like, address, it's going out. And so, you know, on the tape, I put attention team manager, because I didn't even know anyone's name in the industry, put the address, sent them out, and just basically like pull and pray, just hope people, you know, hit me back. In the beginning, I was flowed. I didn't start getting paid until basically I made the decision that I wasn't gonna go to college and I was gonna go on this trip to Europe. And I told my parents that that's what I wanted to do, and they panicked. They were like, absolutely not. And so in that kind of battle of my parents saying, I don't want you to be a pro skateboarder, one thing they said was, hey, if you're gonna do this, you at least gotta get paid. And so I used that to basically call my sponsors, and I said, hey, look, I told my parents that like I wanna do this. I think I have an opportunity doing it, but they said I absolutely have to go to college if I'm not making money. So I'm just gonna put it in your hands. If you can pay me, I can continue to do this. If you can't pay me, I've gotta stop and go to school. And so at that point, Duff's and Maple wouldn't do it, so I ended up quitting Maple. Santa Cruz ended up paying me. So Santa Cruz and Duff's ended up paying me, and it was like maybe 800 bucks a month. I think 5 and 3 was the split. Prior to graduating, I was sponsored by Santa Cruz for like, I can't remember how long, 3 months or something like that. And they were the ones that first started paying me, and then I ended up switching over to City Stars, and then City Stars had a big Europe trip. So I graduated high school, and then all of us went to Europe for the first time. So that's when Paul and I turned pro, but then we didn't have the boards come out. So you're gonna see soon after, I'm gonna have a Seek ad for turning pro. Yep, there it is. So then here's my pro ad for Seek. When Seek started, I had just come off of that Europe trip that was with Skateboarder. And on that trip, I met Anthony Papalardo. And growing up, my favorite company was always Girl, and then like Photosynthesis hit, and then Alien was like the company, right? Seek lasts for, gosh, I can't even remember how long, 4 or 5 years. They decide to shut Seek down. And dude, thankfully, Rob was like, hey dude, we're closing it, we're taking you, and we're taking Kalis. And you guys are coming on to Alien. When I started writing for Alien, I was probably 25, if I were to guess. When we turned pro, it really was just being announced in a magazine. It was basically an ad. These guys are pro. And for some reason, it didn't feel like I thought it was gonna feel. I was like, oh, that's cool. What was weird is when I saw somebody ride my skateboard for the first time. That's when it was like, holy crap, like this person bought my board, my name's on it. It was definitely like a surreal feeling, but I remember it not being as like impactful as I thought. Like I was like, oh, okay, that's cool, I'm pro. When I first turned pro, skating was so small. It was like, it didn't feel like it was even really a real career. And even like the amount of time that pros could be pro for it was small. So like the idea of being pro for like 5, 6 years was kind of like dream scenario. But what was changing is as our careers started beginning, that's when like Chad Muska broke out to like, you know, being like in our eyes, like a really famous figure. Tony Hawk was like a household name. Koston was exploding. So we kind of recognized that this was probably the beginning of pro skateboarders having a longer career, but it was so new that like we didn't really know what that meant. So when I turned pro, I was like, okay, cool. Like, is this gonna be 3 years? Is it gonna be 5? The idea of it going 10 years it wasn't even a thought. I thought that was kind of impossible. I almost made it 15 years. It was like 14 and a half years, which was like, it just kept getting longer. I was just like, dude, this is nuts. When I told my parents that like, whatever, I wasn't gonna go to college, I was gonna be a pro skateboarder. The only way my parents were able to find some type of comfort in it was to connect me with a relationship they had that was like gonna help me financially, like plan through being a pro skateboarder. And so they connected me with this guy, Randy, and I met with him, it was right around 19. I sit in his office and Randy's like, okay, so like you're a pro skateboarder, what does that mean? And I'm like, I don't know, what do you mean, what does it mean? And he's like, so you like skate contests? I'm like, no. And he's like, so then how do you get paid? And so I'm trying to break down how our industry works, right? We do video parts, we have photos of magazines, like I wear company's product. And he was trying to wrap his head around like what the opportunity was as me being a pro skateboarder and how long I could be a pro for. And I had no answer to his questions. I didn't know how long I could be a pro. I didn't know what type of money you could make. And in the beginning, he just helped me like build out a plan of like what I was gonna do to navigate through the skate industry. And his whole thing is basically live like you're broke so that you can put all of the extra money you have to getting out of debt. Well, Randy kind of had me doing that, except I wasn't in debt. It was to be able to invest my money. And as a skateboarder, like, dude, we don't make that much. So I was living off, gosh, 20% of my income, and I was investing the rest of it. And so that was my original plan, like invest in stocks, invest in bonds, start saving up money so that I can invest in real estate and do as much as I can so that once the sponsors said goodbye, I had enough income coming in from these investments to either cover my lifestyle or at least help me figure out what life after skateboarding was gonna be. That was the whole plan. Everything changed once we started St. Archer, but prior to that, that was kind of my plan. Be a pro skateboarder, make as much as I can being a pro, live like I'm broke, invest as much money as possible. The 3 founders of St. Archer was me, Paul Rodriguez, and Josh Landon. Part of my plan wasn't to start a business, actually. And in the beginning, it was kind of like a hybrid for me because I was still skating at that point. And Josh was like, dude, you're only gonna skate for 3 more years and then you're moving down to San Diego and we're doing St. Archer full time together. And we ended up selling it before that moment happened. It was actually challenging for me because I thought St. Archer was gonna be that thing. And when we sold it, I went back into this like, holy crap, what is next? It's not that. But overall, it ended up being good. We sell St. Archer at the end of 2015. From that point, I was still sponsored by DC and I had a contract that had, I think like 2 years left on it. And so I was like, dude, this is like victory lap style, right? Like I'm gonna have 3 years where I could just like enjoy the last 3 years of my career. DC ended up going through like a full change up and they basically ended all of our deals early. And I just wasn't prepared for that. It was like it was such a shock to the system I definitely had a year, even though I prepared, dude, I was kind of lost actually. I just didn't know what was what anymore. Even though this might not be realistic, you always have this idea of like what your career is gonna look like during the end. What I realize is the idea that you have typically isn't what happens. And so I basically looked at it and went, okay, this is it. What do I do now? And that was kind of the decision I made. Like, I'm gonna move on now. At that moment, I decided, okay, I need to figure out something that's like really in line with like who I am and ultimately what I wanna do. At that time, I was kind of like working through this challenging time as a pro skateboarder, moving from my career into the abyss. And that was all the pain I was feeling. So I started thinking of like what company I could start that would help with that type of process. And so that's kind of what led to me figuring out what was next was, you know, how do I replicate what this guy did in my life, which totally changed the trajectory of my future. And that's kind of how I got to that point of creating this company. And when I was thinking specifically about what investment I thought could really help skaters, I went back to what I was primarily investing in when I was skating. And real estate was always where the majority of my money went. I looked at basically my sponsors as having all of the control, right? They're the ones that controlled my future. They're the ones that paid me. And if they ever decided that I wasn't gonna be pro anymore, all my income went away. Real estate pays you income, which I liked. Two, when you're young, you're in this like wealth building mode, right? And real estate offers kind of both of those components. Appreciation, which is your wealth build, and cash flow. I liked the idea of bringing an investment to skaters that I knew could be there when their career ended and could produce the wealth build and cash flow component to it. The idea of Commune and what Commune is a private equity real estate firm, which basically goes out and buys real estate, and then we bring investor dollars in to be able to do it, and then the investors and us get to split in the profits of the asset. And so basically what we decided was all of our content on social media was going to be through the purpose of education so that people could learn how investing works. And then once they got to the point, if they ever wanted to invest in real estate, then they could do that with us. So we are going to check out one of our local properties. It's only about 20 minutes from our office. And this is one of our storage units. It was actually one of the first properties that I invested in on my first investment. There was a gas station that sat here. And so the whole play was to buy the gas station, and it was a discount, and scrape it and then build all these storage units. So I did like the idea of taking something that was at discount, putting in the work to build something nice, leasing it up, and then that was kind of our way of forcing the appreciation. And we were able to make a bigger return because of that. You know, when you delay gratification, or you don't take money now, you take money in the back end through all this work, then you have the potential to make more. And that is what ended up happening with this project, but you know, just through the beginning stages of it, yeah, it was like 3 years, no income coming in at all. I think for me, like the times in my life where I've done the best, it's when I kind of gamified what I was doing, right? Like anytime I made it a game, I did well. Anytime I wasn't really thinking about it, then it was just whatever. And for me, investing in, you know, the financial side, yeah, it mirrored kind of skateboarding. It was like, how do I win at this? And how do I do more and do better? Yeah, this was fully gamified. The part of skateboarding that was very similar to something like this was more the process I was going through to get to the point of being able to invest. And I would say it's probably similar to like learning a trick, right? Like you sit there for hours over and over trying something and you're like not even coming close. And then like one day you might come kind of close, and then that encourages you for the next however long until you do it, right? Saving is very similar to that. It's like you start saving a little bit and the amount is nothing. And then a little bit more, and you definitely hit a point where you're like, oh my gosh, I've kind of saved a lot, right? And then that's encouraging that you can kind of get to the end goal. This isn't about luck, and this isn't about swinging for the fences. It's all about discipline. It's just like skateboarding. You're not gonna jump down a 15-stair rail right when you learn how to ollie. And so don't keep your mind on the fact that you're not skating big handrails yet. Learn how to ollie, learn how to kickflip, learn how to do grinds, and work your way up to it. Investing is the same way. So just learn the discipline that you already know from skateboarding, you apply it financially, you're gonna be fine. The facts are, school just does a terrible job at teaching any of us about money, right? It's the one thing that all of us use collectively in our life, and school does nothing to make us prepare at all. So you have just a huge swath of the population that is just financially illiterate. So that's one. Two, as far as the percentage of people that are investing or actually saving for the later half of their career, that percentage is incredibly low as well. Then you move into like our niche of skateboarding, or if you want to be more broad, athletes. 80% of athletes go broke within 5 years. If you look at like football players, you're talking about people who make way more than skaters going broke. I think money just period is taboo. And then you move into the skate culture and it's like an even added challenge. As a pro skateboarder trying to navigate through this industry, you have no gauge of like what other pros are making. So that means you don't even have a gauge of what you're worth. Like how are you supposed to know like what the market value is? You don't. And so you ask yourself, who does that benefit? Does it benefit the skater or does it benefit the company? It benefits the company. So I think it kind of hurts skaters to not talk about money and to not know about how money works, because at the end of the day, the skater's the one that's suffering because they're the one not making as much as they could be. This is going to apply for skaters. It kind of applies to everybody, but the reason why being financially literate is so important, because once you have the tools to actually start taking action, what that action eventually means is freedom, right? Like we make money based on working. So we are sacrificing our time to make income. When you start investing, you start having money that comes in without you having to work. And you will get to a point, if you remain disciplined, which skaters are so good at the discipline side, that you will get to a point where you can choose to work. And as a skateboarder, it's like, is there a better scenario than that? Like you get to look around and go, what do I want to do today? And get to choose. That's like the holy grail. That can only happen if you're financially planning for your future.